It's clear that both here in Saskatchewan and throughout Canada, the criminal justice system is lacking in its treatment of our people. And I'm going to use the term our people. I'm going to say Anishinaabe because I'm more comfortable using the term Anishinaabe than I am Aboriginal or anything else. And I want to as well say ask the indulgence of citizens from other nations when I use that term, because it's done so. I use the term out of respect. And over the last couple of days, you've no doubt had the chance to hear a great deal about some of the more pressing issues, some of the crisis points, the most serious points throughout the country. But I think you probably heard a lot or talked a lot as well about the solutions, some of the solutions that we can draw on to create a system in which Anishinaabe are treated fairly and equally across all stages of the justice process. We are reminded time and again, and almost on a day-to-day basis, that justice issues are not simply limited to any one region, nor are they simply quote-unquote isolated incidents. For example, in Manitoba, and I have to say I was very honored to have been part of that process in terms of the Aboriginal Justice Inquiry. The inquiry examined the entire system of administration of justice in Manitoba, obviously, and it looked specifically at the deaths of Helen Betty Osborne and J.J. Harper, who was then the executive director of the Island Lake Tribal Council. Today, for example, over the last short while in Ontario, we've been witnessing the ongoing inquiry into the death of Dudley George at Ipperwash. We've also seen the investigation of Frank Paul, who died of hyperthermia just a few hours after he was released from police custody in British Columbia. And we've also seen a number of situations in Quebec where lawful protesters, including chiefs, were kept in custody for no reason. And we see here in Saskatchewan ongoing efforts to work past the many incidents that have plagued the relationship between Anishinaabe and the criminal justice system. Last year, for example, reports released by the Commission on First Nations and Métis Peoples in Justice Reform and the Stonechild Inquiry attempted to address and identify many of the issues that have impeded the relationship between Anishinaabe peoples and the justice system in Saskatchewan. Issues related to policing, restorative justice, and the court system were some of the issues that were addressed or identified. And I take it they are being addressed here in your deliberations over today and the last couple of days. We know, however, that in so many areas of Aboriginal policy and Aboriginal law, implementation and action are the key. They're fundamental to any success that we might experience. It is not enough to just discuss these issues and for discussion to take place. We need deliberations, we need serious deliberation, and we need conclusions at the end of the day. And these deliberations and conclusions obviously will propel people into action. Anishinaabe must be ensured equal access and equal treatment by the criminal justice system. Talking about it is simply not enough. I mean, we have to encourage people to move, and we have to encourage the systems, the powers that be, to have serious discussion and movement. The report from the Commission on First Nations and Métis Peoples and Justice Reform also made it clear that issues of justice cannot be isolated from the broader issues of history, culture, and the situation that many of our people experience today. The Commission's report also stated that the challenges come from a history of government where failures in areas of education, health, and economic development are pretty standard, pretty prevalent. And it's not surprising that a lot of our nation, a lot of our people say, well, we take a different perspective of life. We tend to take a more holistic view of the world. And it is from this holistic view of our world and our surroundings that we tend to do things. And unfortunately, the systems that we see today, either in education and health and social development and so on, don't take this view. And then sadly, we see failure upon failure. But I have to say as well, it's true that without access to proper education and economic opportunity, it's almost impossible to break the cycle of poverty. And because of this, crime becomes almost an enticing option. I had the opportunity of speaking with, in Winnipeg, to a number of groups that were involved with urban development, or lack of development for that matter, crime, gangs, the lack of education opportunities for a lot of our young people in the core areas. And I was struck by what one of the principals of the schools mentioned. She indicated, well, you know what, she was talking about check day, social development day, because you have situations in some families where you have 1, 2, 3, third generation families that have been living on social assistance. And she was struck by this young boy of 8 years old comes up there and says, Miss, it's not check day anymore. It's DDD day. It's direct deposit day. So so you have situations like that continue throughout. And where do we break? When or where and how do we break this cycle? And obviously, without access to quality health care that attempts to address the physical, the community, and the mental health needs, the lure of addiction can be overpowering at times. And of course, we've seen time and again the generational effects of this are quite clear. And we see this we see this in the area of law enforcement when it comes to our people specifically. We should not excuse the treatment that is born from the stereotypes and the racist expectations. But we must understand that, however, these stereotypes exist. And people agents of the justice system, people that are involved in the decision-making policy, must understand that the history of this country and how this history shapes their views of our people, as well as how it shapes the perception of the First Nations people when they look at the justice system in Canada. This has to be righted. The history of this country has to be put right, or the story. Elder Musgrave talked about storytelling, the story of how this country was shaped, was created, and the role that our people had in the development and the creation of this country has to be told in a proper way. It has to be righted, and we can't continue to live on misinformation and what have you. For example, the Royal Proclamation of 1763 was because of the direct involvement of Three Fires Confederacy Chief Pontiac. And by virtue of the Royal Proclamation of 1763, we have treaties today. And by virtue of Pontiac and Tecumseh, Canada was able to repel the advances of the American. So these stories have to be told. And our young people should be proud of who we are and where we came from. And for example, in the Ojibwe language, the word for police is shamaganish, which essentially means, the arresting man or the man who captures. And this one word speaks volumes about the relationship, about the way the relationship has been between our people and the justice system and the police. And it also speaks volumes about the way we perceive from family, from community, and placing them in residential schools and keeping these children in situations that weren't the best of situations to begin with, but it was difficult. And also, there were situations, and I hear Chinishnabek in my community, Sagin, talk at times about how you needed which I guess essentially was a green card to leave your community. These things have to be righted, and we can't continue to be in this state of denial, or it really didn't happen, or maybe it didn't happen. But the fact of the matter is, we have to start talking about it.